What's up, everybody? This is your boy Ken, aka MrGentleman, your host of MrGentleman Like That podcast, and this week's sponsorship is from Newsly. Newsly is a all-in-one audio super app for iOS and Android. It picks up web articles about the most trending topics on the web at any given moment and read them to you in a natural human voice. For the first time in ever on the internet, the entire web becomes listenable, all in one place. Browse articles from topic you choose, start playing, start scrolling, and start listening. You can follow any topic as you specifically as you like, from sports, science to Bitcoin, even for the Kardashians. It will find you on the latest article and you read them to you out loud. And they have podcasts as well. Explore trending podcasts from over 50 countries. Our podcast, MrGentleman Like That podcast, is on there as well. Yes, it is. Shout out to Newsly for that. I started using it as my default podcast app. Download and use Newsly for free from www.newsly.me or from the link in the description. Use the promo code MrGentleman that I will also put in the description and receive 1 month free premium subscription. So you already know, y'all, download Newsly now. Check it out. Support them, y'all. This is your boy Ken, aka MrGentleman, your host of MrGentleman Like That podcast, and enjoy the show.
You are now listening to MrGentleman Lifestyle Podcast. Chill!
Hello, everybody. This is your boy Ken, aka MrGentleman, 1/4 of the Premier Boy podcast, and your host of MrGentleman Lifestyle Podcast. And welcome to another new episode of MrGentleman Lifestyle Podcast. Hope all is well. And, today is a very, very special day. Today is the 4-year anniversary of MrGentleman Lifestyle Podcast. And if y'all, been here through the beginning, from the bottom of my heart, I thank you for all the many support that you've done for the show. It really means a lot. Honestly, when I started this show on January 20th, 2019, I didn't think that this show was going to last long term, honestly. I wanted to quit many times. People rejected my show. People treated me like trash. People couldn't take me serious. People didn't want to give me a chance, and many more. And I wanted to quit many times. I wanted to give up, but something told me that don't give up, because the show could do many things, and honestly, it has. The show inspired many people to start their own podcast. The show also inspired people to step up their game and encourage them in many ways. And honestly, when I heard that with my many personal stories, I honestly couldn't believe it. And the fact that this show was helping people is the reason why I kept the show going, from bringing the many guests to tell their story and then opening up myself to tell my story on this platform. I want to thank everybody for listening and giving the show a chance. So once again, I thank y'all for tuning in to MrGentleman Lifestyle Podcast for 4 years. 159 episodes altogether, including the 3 spin-off series we have: the Old School Show, a Conversation About Music podcast, and Date Night Talk podcast. From 55 guests who told amazing stories about their journey, their life journey, from where they began and where they're at now. And even though I don't speak to all my guests on a daily basis, I appreciate each and every one of y'all for coming on the show, and because y'all story help others out there. And I see y'all all doing big, amazing things, so continue to do big, amazing things. And this show, changed me as a person. This show really found my purpose. So for real, y'all, from the bottom of my heart, thank y'all for tuning in to MrGentleman Lifestyle Podcast for the last 4 years. And let's continue to support the show for many more, because honestly, y'all, I am not going anywhere. But y'all already know on this episode, as I do on every anniversary episode, I talk about my podcast journey. So y'all already know this could be a long one. So yeah, I'm going to tell my podcast journey from January 20th, 2019 up to now. So we're going to dive into every story, every guest, every accomplishment that we had done with the show, and everything. This is basically a celebration to the listener, to the guests, to everybody that this show done for the podcast community. This is a celebration. And I thank you everybody for joining the ride. And also, I will be listening to all y'all shoutouts. As y'all know, at every anniversary episode, I have not listened to y'all shoutouts. So yeah, and y'all already know what to do. Sit back, relax, and I'll be right back. Happy 4-year anniversary to MrGentleman Lifestyle Podcast. Chill!
Hey, how y'all doing out there? This is Fiordalisa White. Came through to MrGentleman Lifestyle Podcast to come and wish my boy Ken a happy anniversary. I can't believe it. It's so fast, right? Well, believe it, man. You've been doing your thing for a whole another year, and I wish you nothing but the best. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep pushing. Keep positive, keep this alive, and I'm going to keep supporting you because that's what I do. One.
This is Bronx Boom Boom wishing a happy anniversary to MrGentleman Lifestyle Podcast.
Hi, this is Jailan Salman. Happy 4-year anniversary of MrGentleman Lifestyle Podcast. Wishing you all the best, Mike Canny.
What's up? It's Jimmy Raya Star, and happy 4-year anniversary of MrGentleman's Lifestyle Podcast. Keep making great content. Keep up the entertainment. I enjoy being on the show, and I enjoy watching the show. So yeah, keep doing your thing.
Congratulations to MrGentleman's Lifestyle Podcast for reaching 4 years. Happy 4-year anniversary, and shout out to MrGentleman for being such a great host. This is Mariah Dumas. Thanks for having me as a guest on your show. Cheers to many, many years of success.
Hello, everybody. This is your boy Ken, aka MrGentleman of MrGentleman Like That Podcast. And this commercial break is brought to you by MrGentleman Like That Podcast, where we bring many guests telling about their stories about their brand they got going on. Also about me telling y'all my personal stories about things that are going on in my life. Also, we have many spin-off shows on MrGentleman Like That Podcast called The Old School Show, with myself and the Star Writing Rod, where we talk anything old school, which happen every 4th or 5th Sunday at 12 a.m. on the MrGentleman Like That Podcast Network, and another spin-off show called A Conversation About Music Podcast, where we talk to many artists about their music journey. And also we have a roundtable music discussion about anything music, and which should come on every first Sunday at 12 a.m. on MrGentleman Like That Podcast Network. And yeah, you already know, if y'all need a podcast to listen to, check out MrGentleman Like That Podcast. We're on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Good Pod, and many more. Y'all can rate the show 5-star rating on Good Pod, Podchaser, and Apple Podcasts. The more y'all rate, the more love the show get. Y'all can also check it out on YouTube. Subscribe on YouTube now. Ken, aka MrGentleman, like that TV. And also support the website of MrGentleman, like the podcast, MrGentleman, like that podcast.com. This is your boy Ken, aka MrGentleman, and have a good day, night, wherever you're listening to this episode. Back to the show. Sure.
Hiya, it's Hazel-Eyed Rose. Happy 4th year anniversary of Mr. Gentleman Lifestyle Podcast. I'm happy at how far you've come, and I hope you have a blessed future ahead of you.
This is Jason
and Kathy
from All Hallows Eve Podcast,
wishing you a happy 4-year anniversary of Mr. Gentleman Lifestyle Podcast.
Happy anniversary, my friend. We owe you a lot. You have been a huge supporter of our podcast from almost the beginning. And like I said, we owe you so much. Thank you very much. And congratulations. And I hope to hear you for 4 more years. Stay spooky, my friend.
Happy anniversary to Ken, a.k.a. Mr. Gentleman, from Lena, Mike, and Kevin at the Films and Fermentation Podcast.
Hey Ken, this is Chris from Today We Laughed and Learned. I just want to wish you the absolute happiest podiversary. 4 years is no small feat. You are an amazing man, do great work, and you truly are a gentleman. Happy 4-year anniversary. Much love.
Hey, it's Nicole from the Doom Generation Podcast, wishing Mr. Gentleman Lifestyle Podcast a happy 4-year anniversary. Here's to 4 more.
Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. And at this time, today we are celebrating. And we are celebrating the 4-year anniversary of Mr. Gentleman Lifestyle Podcast. And honestly, have I thought that I would ever go and make it to 4 years in this podcast thing? Honestly, I didn't think so. I went through a lot along the way, from trial and tribulation, me wanting to give up. But, if you know something's going to work, you just can't give up. And now we at 159 episodes later with 3 spin-off shows. The Old School Show, myself and the Star Rider Rod, a conversation about music podcast, and Date Night Talk podcast with myself and Vanna B. 55 guests all together. Show been number 1 multiple times on Good Pod for Society and Culture, documentary, and even top 100 shows. I've done over 20 interviews on other platforms. And if y'all know me, I'm a shy guy, and meaning more. And to do this show for 4 years, it really was a journey. And I just want to thank everybody that took the time and supported, listened, rated, reviewed, shared, everything. Thank you for making the show what it is today, and I appreciate each and every one of y'all. Once again, I thank y'all. So now we're gonna talk about my podcast journey. So y'all better sit back and relax and enjoy me on this ride. So why did I want to start podcasting? I wanted to do podcasting, well, radio, I should say, because it was something that I always wanted to do growing up. Because as y'all know, I love music. I listen to music all my life. I love all types of music, especially R&B. Growing up, I listened to Hot 97, Kiss FM, WBLS. Later, in the 2000s, Power 105. Even as a kid, I used to listen to Radio Disney. And I remember one day that I saw this commercial
and it was a commercial of a little built-in radio. I'm a kid, and I wanted that. And what this radio thing do was you plug up to your nearest radio station and you set it up on your AM station and you be on the radio based on that. And when I saw that, I really wanted to do it. I really wanted to do the radio and stuff like that. But why I haven't done it is because as a kid, I ended up having speech problems, stutter a lot. I got a list and I get picked on a lot. I was bullied as a kid. Behind that, we're called many names and stuff like that. And with all that, I lost confidence in myself for a very, very long time. That caused me to go for what I really wanted to go for. So over the years, I always tried to do many things to find myself. And on top of that, another reason why I didn't do it because I was quiet. I was a shy kid, I was a quiet kid, and also dealt with social anxiety. But we're gonna get to that later this episode. But yeah, it was just many things that I was dealing with as a kid. But then I realized that I had to start doing many things to try to get out of that, even though I was a shy kid. I've done music and had a music group at one point. And then I became a club promoter. Then I became an actor. And then, 2018, I wanted to start taking my, chasing my dreams, stuff like that. So, me and my bro, Aaron Quinto Sands, we came across this radio station in New York. I forgot what it's called. And from there, 2018, we wanted to do the Premier Boy podcast. Originally, the Premier Boy podcast was supposed to come out in 2018, but we didn't have no idea for it. We didn't have no plan. We're just me and him. We just wanted to go to the studio and that's it. And plus, with too much money, and we couldn't really build that studio. So later that year, somebody I knew had a podcast show. Shout out to Miss Queen Libra. She had a podcast show, and I asked her up. I was like, "Yo, good podcast show. How do you start your podcast?" And she told me about this app called Anchor. And once I found out about it, I downloaded the app. This was September 2018. But like I said, I didn't have no idea of what to call the podcast name or anything. I had no idea, so I keep pushing it back. October came. I was too scared to do it, push it back. November came. Too scared to do it, push it back. December came. I too scared to do it, push it back, but I came up with a name. And the name I come up with was MrGentleman Lifestyle Podcast. And how I came up with the name was MrGentleman. I came up with the nickname MrGentleman all the way back in 2008 when Neo album Year of the Gentleman came out, and I was inspired by that. So that's when I started calling myself MrGentleman. January came, January 2019. One night I stayed home because I was a club promoter. I was club promoting at Taj that night. And I stayed home and I didn't want to go nowhere due to something that happened the week before. So I stayed home and I was thinking to myself, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? So I started to do the podcast show. So I did a podcast show. And this was episode 0 of MrGentleman Lifestyle Podcast. And episode 0 was basically about telling people that, I'm who I was and why I started the podcast. I didn't think nothing of it. I was like to myself, no, why am I even starting a podcast? Nobody not gonna listen to it. People ain't gonna care. People never care what I do anyway. So why am I starting a podcast anyway? But as I put it out and people listened to it, people gave me a lot of positive reviews, even though the audio was terrible, everything was really bad. Everybody gave me positive reviews. They were telling me that, Ken, you should keep going. You got a nice voice for radio. Keep going. Stuff like that. And that's what I did. I kept going. But even though I released the episode first, I felt like something was missing. And what was missing was music. So on my early shows, I used to have music on the show, which we'll get to more about that later because it's a big story about why the show is completely different as what it is now. So now we're on episode 1, and I still try to figure out what to do because I'm brand new. I don't know what I'm doing. All I'm doing for recording was just my phone and maybe my earbuds, so I wasn't doing much. So I was like, what should I do for episode 1, like the official episode 1? So I wanted to do news topic. And the first news was, I remember with Jesse Starlett news, and I pushed that on my show. But I hated how it came out, and I felt like it didn't fit me. So I was like, let me get news another try, and we'll do it another time. Also, last minute, I asked my sister, Danielle, does she want to come to my show as my first guest? And she said yes, because she had a podcast show dropping a week later. With her podcast show is also 4 year. Shout out to Coaching Out Loud with Dale Powell, was also on a 4-year anniversary, I think a week later. Happy anniversary to her. And yeah, so I came up with 5 short answers, five short questions to ask her about, her podcast show and stuff like that. And shockingly, that episode did really well. Shout out to Dale for, doing it last minute and being on the show and stuff like that. Episode 2 was the Valentine's Day episode. And for Valentine's Day episode, I would figure out what I'm going to do. I did 2 drafts for Valentine's Day episode. I did 1 draft and it came out really terrible. So I put the episode out and I went to work and it did terrible. So I scrapped the whole episode and did it over again and released it later that night on Valentine's Day. And it got like a better review. It basically took about my past love life, stuff like that. And it pretty much became an annual thing for the show. Episode 3, I came with more MrGentleman news, but I realized that the news did not fit my show. So I scrapped it all together. It came out a new idea for how my show gonna go going forward. And the original idea for MrGentleman, like the podcast, was to have people I know on the show and talk about their brands that they had, like whatever business they had. I want to promote it on my show so people I know have a chance to show their talents. And that what the show was for, especially for season 1. Basically had many people I know come on the show. We just talk about their brands and what they're doing. So the next guest was on episode 3 was my bro Aaron Keto Sands, and he would talk about his taking pictures business at the time. And that's how that was. And that was a cool episode. Shout out to the bro. Y'all gonna hear more about him on the show because he was on the show for a whole lot of times. So episode 4, originally I had my friend Miss Pam the Allowed come on the show for episode 4, but I needed the vent. So episode 4 was the episode where I pretty much had something to say. I pretty much was venting about stuff that was going on. And honestly, I wasn't proud of that episode. I wasn't sure what I was thinking when I even did the episode, but for some reason the episode got really popular. So I guess it came out good. It was just me voicing my frustration on many things. And that was episode 4. Episode 5, I had my good friend Miss Pam the Allowed on the show. And she is an entrepreneur. And she basically spoke about her entrepreneur journey. And I guess the episode was the start of the show, figure out my direction of the show. Because the episode was my really first successful episode. And I always appreciate her for coming to the show. Thank you, Pam, for coming to the show and helping me on this growth of the show. So episode 6 came, and I was at a stuck place with two trying to figure out where I was going to go with the show. I was through a stuck direction. I still don't know. I thought I had an idea where the show was going. And I wasn't sure. And honestly, this was one part of me wanting to give up. It started I was losing confidence in what direction my show is going. Episode 6 was pretty much just a filler episode that asked people questions. People didn't really ask me questions, and I just pretty much didn't really have no idea. But yeah, that was happy with that. Episode 7, I wanted to add wrestling to the show because wrestling is something that I love to talk about, and I wanted to basically talk about every big pay-per-view, WrestleMania, SummerSlam, Survivor Series, and Royal Rumble. And this first episode was WrestleMania, but the original episode was just me doing the prediction. And I did it by myself, and it came out terrible. I was not happy at all with this, so I scrapped it completely. So I told my bro, Aaron Keto saying, do you want to do a wrestle prediction episode for my show? And you're like, yeah, let's do it. So we did WrestleMania prediction for the very first prediction episode. And it came out pretty good. But at the time, I was recording on Anchor. And in the early days when I was recording on Anchor, it came out terrible. Meaning Anchor kept cutting off. And YouTube just messed up the whole vibe. And I didn't know how to edit at the time. So my episode was really bad at the time. So it was just like, dang, like audio played a big bad part in the first season. But after we recorded the WrestleMania prediction episode, we found out that Nipsey Hussle passed away. And that was like a really crazy, moment at the time. Stuff like that. So yeah, so that would happen on episode 7. Episode 8, my sister Dia Powell came back on the show, but also I had my older sister Tawana Powell, and they spoke about their life journey and spoke about the current business they got right now called The World Is a Girl's Runway. And it was a really good interview, and thank you them for coming on the show. So episode 9, I started a new series that I was going to do every mid and finale episode of MrGentleman, like the podcast called the Countdown Show, where I count down 10 songs from every song that I played on my show, because during the early days, I played songs on my show like it was the radio. So I pretty much started a countdown show, and basically in the middle of the segment, I pretty much just talk about something. I did the first episode, but just Billboard charts. But that was really much. That was like more of a filler than the actual segment. Until I found out how successful the series was. So I kept going after a while. Episode 10 was recorded the Big 10. I had my bro, Long Live the Chief Minded Mel, on the show, and we talked about his music career. And it was a really dope interview. This was my first interview that I did live face to face. So this was a dope interview, and it was cool. And after this episode, it gave me an idea to start my very first spin-off show, which was a music show. Which later, we're gonna talk about the later spin-off music show. But I had a spin-off show early in my podcast career called New Music / Unsigned Hype Fridays, where I have artists on the show and we play their music and we interviewed them, and then we played new music from what's going on the radio right now. But that idea was really bad because I had no artist coming on my show at the time, so that spin-off series only had 5 episodes. And it was a real flop in my opinion. It was terrible. So I just pretty much scrapped it completely. It was more playing music than me actually talking. And people really hated that series. That probably was one of my first negative reaction to the show and stuff like that. So episode 11 was the Mother's Day episode. Mother's Day special, basically dedicated to my mother, stuff like that. But also around that time, I started dealing with depression around something that was going on around that time, especially the job that I was dealing with at the time. I was just going through major depression. I just wasn't happy. So after that episode, I just took a long break to figure out, what was my next move and stuff like that. I wasn't happy. As I came back, episode 12, I'm happy, and then we have my bro Trophy T on the show, which was another face-to-face interview, and we just talk about him as an entrepreneur, him as a skateboarder, and it was a really cool episode. It was also my first episode that was starting to get to the explicit route where it was mini curses. It was the first episode for that. So after that, I decided to end the Outside Hype series completely. The idea just wasn't working, and I just wanted to just get rid of that series completely. So starting episode 13, I started to really get back to what the show was supposed to be about, and what getting people I know to talk about their journey, talk about their brands, stuff like that. So I brought my brothers back, Aaron Kito Sands, and also brought my other brother, the Star Rider Ride, and we called this episode the Backdoor Pilot to the Premier Boy Podcast. At the time, we didn't know what the name for the show was going to be, but we didn't know that I thought we were going to come up with a podcast together. And basically, we talk about our journey, our long friendship, and everything we did with the music industry, the nightlife industry, and many more. And we announced at the end of the show that the Premier Boy Podcast was going to launch. Then episode 14, I had my sister on the show, author Sharice Powell on the show, and we just put my first book, Life is What You Make It, Don't Make Life Make You. And that was, everybody could get her book, y'all. Episode 15, we had another wrestling prediction episode, which was the SummerSlam prediction. Episode 16, we have a guest by the name of the Bronx Boom Boom, who is a model, who is an entrepreneur, and we just talk about her journey. And this was the first interview that was somebody that I did not know, but I knew her because she was a long time social media friend. And this interview pretty much started to change up my shift of the show just a little bit. Episode 17, I had an actress by the name of Molly Podge on the show, and this was probably one of my favorite episodes of season 1, because this was one of those interviews where she messed up and wanted to start over because she was really scared, but when she started over, the interview came out really dope. Like, it was nothing wrong. You would never start over. And I gotta say, this was one of my favorites. My favorite interview for season 1. And then season 1 finale was episode 18, which was the Countdown Show Volume 2, where we count down 10 songs that we played on the second half of season 1. And I opened up about my going through depression with my job around that time. So, Mr. Gentleman, like the podcast took a short break, and we released the Premier Boy Podcast, which was released September 11, 2019. So, season 2, Mr. Gentleman, like the podcast, released in October of 2019. And the first episode was Aaron Kito interviewed me on the first episode of season 2. And we just pretty much spoke about, everything he asked me, and stuff like that. It was a cool episode. It was a good way to open the season because that episode did really good. That was one of the most popular episodes for that season. Episode 20 was my best friend on the show, Shadiqua. How I met her was we were co-workers at Nia & Co, but later became best friends later. And basically they talk about, how we want to do entrepreneurship and stuff like that. It was a really cool interview. And she is a fan favorite of the show. Like, everybody loves her as a guest. Hopefully down the line we can bring her back. But yeah. Episode 21, we had the Survivor Series prediction episode. The episode 22, the Star Rider Ride, had his first solo episode, and we talk about music. We just talk about music, and that's pretty much it. Because at the time he was a DJ. When he first came on as his solo interview, and we just talk about music. It was a really dope interview and stuff like that. Episode 23, we have my cousin Nana Power show, who is a screenwriter, who is an actress, and we pretty much talk about her actress journey. And it was a really cool vibe. Episode 24, I had my good friend Miss Felicia Wright come on the show, and I met her a long time ago when I was in the party scene, and we pretty much became good friends. But her interview were probably at the time one of my deepest interviews that I had for that period. But then hearing that interview, it gave me an idea of where my show should start going. And it started leading to the point of people tell their stories. And people tell their stories and start telling their life journey, and stuff like that. People, basically, if you had a story to tell, you come on the show. And episode 24 was the start of that. Then after that, we had the 1 year anniversary. After that, episode 25, we had Christy Christ on the show, who is a podcast. She was my first podcast crossover. She is the host of Fistful Podcast, and we just talk about her life journey as well. And after episode 24 and episode 25, the new direction started to happen where the people could start telling their stories and start basically opening up about their life. And that's how it started from there. And that when I feel like my show is starting to go some type of direction now. So after that, we had the 1 year anniversary episode. Episode 26 was the Royal Rumble prediction. Episode 27 was Jay Siobhan from Surviving the Journey podcast. And also we continue with that route of telling about your life story, and that became a thing now. And I started loving the direction because it felt like my show finally was having some type of direction. And like I said, I appreciate Miss Felicia White, Chrissy Christ, and Jay Siobhan for helping me change the narrative of my show onto how it is now. So once again, thank you for those three guests for changing the narrative of the show. Episode 28, we have our annual Valentine's Day episode. Episode 29, we had the Countdown Show Volume 3, and I felt like this was my favorite Countdown show because I play a lot of old school songs, and I just love this. I love this Countdown show, man. This was my favorite one. Volume 3 was my favorite one. Sadly, you can only listen to this on Spotify, because we're gonna get to the reason why this show got canceled. So, but that was the mid finale. So I took a short break, and originally, I had a podcast idea called Date and Talk, where I talked to ladies to come on the show, and we talk about their relationship status. Later down the line, this show later turned into Date Night Talk, but the original idea was called Date and Talk. But I didn't go with that direction because another podcaster had a show with the same name called Date and Talk with Kaylee. So I decided to change the name to Date Night Talk. And yeah, we're going to get because originally that show was originally a segment type of show. But we'll get more to that. We get to that. Then around this time, a lot would happen around this time. I joined a podcast group called the COOP, the Circle of Outstanding Podcasters, that were run by Angelica from A Little Bit of Everything With Me podcast and Coupon Creeping from COOP Moments. And how this group came about was we were all in an Anchor group on Facebook and stuff like that. And somebody said they wanted to start a podcast group. So it was the original person, I forgot her name, but she started a podcast group and all of us was in this Facebook chat. But the thing was, this group did not have no type of direction at all. It was just us sharing episodes with no direction at all. So shout out to Angelica and Coupon Creeping. They decided to start a podcast group where, had many podcasts from around the world, couple groups, share ideas, come on each other's shows, and just help grow together. And if it wasn't for them, I ain't gonna hold you. If it wasn't for Angelica and Coupon Creeping, they helped me get out of my comfort zone, as in me really starting to get on other people's platforms and really to, I guess, change my mindset, So shout out to Angelica and Keep On Creeping and the whole COOP family. Thank y'all for being a part of my podcast journey. I appreciate each and every one of y'all. And don't worry, y'all gonna hear more about the COOP because a lot of them been on my show. So y'all gonna hear more about the COOP. Also, I had my first podcast interview on surviving the journey with Jay Siobhan, and it was a really good interview. But Anchor was, the audio was messing up on that interview. So hopefully down the line with Jay Siobhan, hopefully I'll get a over interview with you. Cause Anchor really messed up on both our side, both our interviews. So also around this time, COVID happened. This was March 2020. COVID happened, and y'all already know the story. New York City was bad. I had a sore throat. Then I thought it was something else, and I ended up getting an anxiety attack. And y'all heard the COVID stories, the fear anxiety story. When we get to more, I will dive more about that when we get to that part of the episode. But so I did episode 30 and 31. I did a 2-part COVID episode. Basically, one was basically to encourage everybody, and the second was about the story that I just told you just now about my COVID experience. Having anxiety when I first had my first panic attack, stuff like that. So episode 32, I had my sister come back in the show, author Sharice, and we spoke about her second book, Life is What You Make It, Life Make You Part 2. Episode 33, we had the WrestleMania prediction. Then I had to take a short break because I had postnatal drip and my throat was messing up. So for like a whole month, I had to take a podcast break for a whole month because I didn't have no voice. I couldn't really speak. So, and it was a really terrible time. I really wanted to do shows, but I couldn't. Stuff like that. So as I returned, I got on Angelica and Keep On Creeping show called Shoutout or Karaoke, and this show is about basically you pick 3 songs, and out of those 3 songs, you gotta pick if they're a shower song or a karaoke song. And I did my first episode, and I can't remember the song I picked for the first episode. I think I picked I picked Motown Philly for the first episode. It was a cool episode and stuff like that. And yeah. So episode 34 was the first episode of Date Night Talk, the segment. And I had Miss Cece on the show for the first episode of Date Night Talk. Episode 35 was the second one of Date Night Talk segment where I have Miss Vanna B, which later, we're going to get more about Miss Vanna B later. In episode 36, we have Brianna Lightfoot Smith, who is a podcaster from Black Girl with Purpose. And we talk about her podcast journey, her life journey, stuff like that, which was another good episode. Episode 37, we had Lily on the show for Date Night Talk Part 3. And that was probably my first really long episode. Episode 38, we have a former podcast host by the name of Nally on the show. Then I got on CC podcast show called From the Mind of CC. And then we had the finale of the Countdown Show, which was also my birthday episode of Countdown Show Volume 4, which was my 33rd birthday celebration. And then we took a break. Season 3 returns on June 2020, the end of June 2020. So during that break, I made some podcast appearances from A Little Bit Earthy with Me, from Angelica, and Beautiful Feet podcast with Anthony. Then we returned for season 4, and I had my first guest was episode 40 was Banger, who is a music artist, and she is a really dope rapper. She's a really dope artist, man. Y'all should check out her music, really dope. Episode 41, I have Anthony from the Beautiful Feet podcast come on my show. So that was on his show. He returned the favor to come on my show. Episode 42 was a life update. Episode 43, Angelica from A Little Bit Everything With Me came on my show for the first time. And that was a really good interview. You know, we're going to talk more about Angelica when she come back. You know, episode 44, I had my guy from junior high school, Mook Dallas, the show, who was also a music artist. But then something weird happened. Spotify removed episode 23. And at the time, I didn't know why they removed one of my episodes. So I didn't pay no mind. I didn't pay nothing of it. So I like whatever. And stuff like that. Episode 45, I had the Coupon Creep on the show. And I actually liked this interview. This was a really fun interview. Shout out to her. Keep on creeping for CQP moments. Episode 46 was my nightlife journey, where I talk about my time of being a club promoter, because I've been a club promoter for 10 years. So that episode was basically my nightlife journey. So, but the next thing that happened was the start of we had to start changing how my show had to operate. So Spotify removed my show completely, and they removed my show completely because of the copyright infringement of the music that was playing on my show. At the time, of course, I didn't know at the time that was going to happen. I also didn't know at the time that something that would happen to me, because I was a big show. So they removed my show on Spotify completely because of the copyright infringement. And I ain't gonna hold you, that hurt really bad for me, because I was like, dang, like, well, what am I gonna do now? Because I felt like at that time I would use it in music to pretty much be my voice instead of me showing my voice. So I guess it being removed, maybe it was a gift of the curse, but we're good more about this music situation. So episode 47 was a SummerSlam prediction episode. Episode 48, we have Michelle Simone Miller on the show. She is an actress. She is a podcast host from Missiles on the Mic, and this is actually one of my favorite interviews for the first half of season 3. So this was a really good interview. I'm actually looking forward to interview by having her back on my show for a feature episode. So looking forward to bringing Michelle back on the show. In episode 49, we had the Countdown Show Volume 5. So I started thinking to myself, it's time for a change. Every time I'm recording, Anchor keep messing up. It keep, cutting off and stuff like that. So I decided to get rid of Anchor completely and switch my audio to Zoom. And then also I decided to buy myself headphones and buy myself a mic. Cause I felt give myself a brand new laptop, so I give myself to take this podcast thing a little bit more serious. Cause I felt like at the time I wasn't taking the show serious. I wasn't doing it I think when I first was doing it, I knew what I wanted to do, but I didn't think I wouldn't think I would ever take it serious. On top of that, we in a pandemic, and at the time I was laid off from my job. I was there for 10 years, and I didn't know what I was going to do next. So I started taking the podcast a lot more serious, because that became my main source of thing at the moment. And also, I was getting paid from sponsorship at the time, but that's a long story for another day. But yeah, so I decided to just switch it up completely, and then the podcast show got a lot more better. I learned how to add my show, and I just learned how to basically become more of a podcaster. But even though I was still using music at the time, I started to, just to take this more serious. So during this short break, I appeared on Angelica's show a little bit, Everything With Me, as a guest host with her and Coupon Creepin'. Then episode 50, second half of season 3 happened, and I brought back my friend Miss Pansy Allow on the show, and that episode is really, really good. And we spoke about Forex, because she do Forex, she do a lot of entrepreneur stuff at the time, and this was a really good interview. This was a good start of me returning, especially with the new format of me recording on Zoom, me having a video podcast show now. Also, I started doing the YouTube as well. And also the audio sound even better since I started to add the episodes. And after that episode, I got put back on Spotify. So that was a good win. So I was happy about that. Like, cause at the time, Spotify was my biggest platform where most of my listeners listen to. So when I lost Spotify at the first time, I lost a lot of listeners. So I was happy to get back on that platform. So episode 51, I have another podcast by the name of Brobar. He have a podcast show called The Bromar Show. And this was a really cool interview. This episode did really good. It was it was a sleeper episode that did really, really good. Then episode 52, I had my girlfriend, I'm Amber, on the show. And I met her when I was promoting, and she wanted to come to the show and talk about her shade business, and we talked about her glasses business and stuff like that. And after that, I got on the chart for the very first time. I got on the Apple charts for Society and Culture for the very, very first time. And when I saw that, I was like, oh, wow, like this is something that I never thought that would happen. So me seeing myself on the chart for the very first time was just like a beautiful feeling. Even if, of course, it was a high, but it was just amazing. I just knew that I finally feel like I'm somewhat going somewhere with the show. But I do feel like I'm unsure. I'm not confident, but I do happy that it's going somewhere. So episode 53, I had a podcaster by the name of Gia Jackson. She had 3 podcast shows she was working on at the time. And this was actually one of my favorite interviews too. This was a really like smooth, down to earth interview. This was really dope. And shout to her. Then I started bringing back the Date Night Talk segment episodes because a lot of people really love those segments. So episode 54, I brought my good friend Sadiqa back on the show, and she was one of the guests for Date Night Talk segment. Then I had episode 55. I brought my friend that I met from junior high school to do an episode, and she came on the show. Naya Ramey, she came on the show, who is now actually got a pocket show on her own called What the F and Nana. Check a shout out to her. A show I believe is about to make 2 years or 3 years later this month. So shout out to her as well, doing amazing thing. And I brought back up Amber for episode 56. So after that, I felt like a lot of people started to ask me like, yo, you need to talk about more topics. People ask me about Date Night Talk. I brought in Date Night Talk because they wanted to hear more relationship stuff. And people wanted me to talk about other stuff too because, they felt like the show wasn't going one direction. So this was the idea of me started doing the spin-off series because I started the spin-off series because I wanted to give my audience variety of stuff instead of them hearing me talk about my personal stories or, just hearing other people tell their stories. So I wanted to bring some fun conversation. So the first official spin-off show that I officially brought out was the Old School Show, myself and the Star Riding Ride. And I remember the first episode we did for the Old School Show was the Black sitcom episode. We brought Aaron Quinto Sands on it. And shockingly, it did really good. And the one thing about the spin-off series, the Old School Show been my most fan favorite spin-off series. It's been the most successful out of all 3 spin-offs. It's the most successful out of all 3 spin-off series that I did. The Old School Show, a lot of people love the series. Yeah. And right now, this series is on season 2 right now. We just came out with episode 16 recently with the 2000 R&B scene. So thank y'all for, tuning in to the Old School Show and making this a fan favorite. Because everybody really loves the series. So I thank y'all for really taking the time to listen to the spin-off series for myself and the Star Rider Ride. So after that, I got back on Shoutout Karaoke again. Shout out to Angelica and Keep Our Cream Pen. Episode 57, we had Survivor Series episode. Episode 58, we had Lacey, a good friend of mine that I met a long time ago at the beginning of my promoter journey. And she wanted to talk about her hair business, and it was a really dope, really cool interview, and stuff like that. Then episode 59, we had the series finale of the Countdown show, and the crazy thing was this was not supposed to be the series finale, but due to the fact that copyright infringements were heavy on taking down music, taking about episodes on Spotify, and removing me from Spotify for a second time, I just had to scrap this series completely, and then I think after that I had to really figure out what am I gonna do and stuff like that. And I ain't gonna hold you. While that happened, it just made me really not sure where the show's gonna go. So I was just really wondering where the show's gonna go next, stuff like that. So we came back for season 4 on January 17th, 2021. And the first guest I had for season 4 was episode 60 was Cynthia from our collaboration station and Listen and Learn podcast. And this was a really strong start from season 4. And she also a part of the COOP family, and this was a really good interview. Shout out to her. Episode 61, I brought Naya back on the show, and she was a guest host. Basically interviewed me about a lot of relationship questions. And originally, this was supposed to be the Date Night Talk podcast pilot episode, originally. But for some reason, this episode just had, the Date Night Talk did never happen at the time. But yeah, it didn't happen at the time. But yeah, we will get to more about that a little later. Then we had the 2-year anniversary of the Gentleman Like the podcast, 2021 episode. Then we had an exclusive episode with Aaron Quito Sands, basically just talking about many things about how we met and stuff like that. And then he announced that he had his solo podcast show called Quito with Aaron Sands, which I was an executive producer of that show. So that was basically the backdoor pilot for that. Then we had the episode 62, which was the Royal Rumble prediction. We also had Long the Chief on that episode as well. Episode 63, we had the annual Valentine's Day episode. Episode 64, we had Paige from Badass Fabulous on the show. This was actually one of my favorite interviews so far for this season. Also, she's also a part of the COOP family. This was a dope interview. Shout out to Paige. Episode 65, we had Hazel Eyes Rose on the show, which was a really, really deep episode. And she pretty much opened up about, mental health. Basically talking about, dealing with psychosis and everything that she's been through. And this episode really got a lot of positive review. A lot of people hit me up saying that this was a really strong episode, and they wanted me to do more episodes like this, more people to tell these stories like this. And honestly, after this episode, I kind of did. And I want to thank you, Hazel, for really telling your story. To this day, this episode is really a strong episode, and people really relate to this episode. So thank you, Hazel, for telling your story for this episode. Episode 66, we had my bro Sam from high school on the show. Talk about his entrepreneurial journey, stuff like that. Shout out to him. Then I went on another podcast appearance on Marco's show. Where did the rabbit go? Alongside Angelica and the beautiful feet, Anthony and his wife. It was a dope interview. Then I got another copyright infringement from University Music Group, and it basically took over more of my episodes. It took me on Spotify again, and at this point I was like, yeah, I'm tired. So what I did was I ended the first half of season 4
With the last 3 episodes, it was, WrestleMania 2021, episode 68, when Miss Vanna B came back on the show, and then basically took up everybody that I'm taking a long break to rebuild my show completely. So this was probably one of the longest break I took. I took 2-month break from the show, and I took that long because I wanted to really rebuild my show completely. So what I did was I removed every song off my show. So it's no more music, completely no music at all now. I removed all my songs completely. I re-edited every episode. So I went from episode 68 all the way down to 0. And I re-edited every episode where I took an old audio and re-edited it and just edited it, to make it sound better. Or even the choppy ones that get messed up on Anchor, I redid those as well. I put them together so it took what I messed up and added them together. When you listen to the old episode now, you don't hear none of that error. So I just realized that it's time to really take it serious. It's time to really show my voice. It's really time to really show my voice. It's really time to basically open up a little more. I feel like I was hiding myself behind the music and hiding myself between the guesses, and I was not really talking about my truth. I wasn't really talking about none of my truth. So I think after this episode, I decided to really open up, and really to just change the show completely. And this is where it came in, where I want all my guests to just open up about their life journey and let them know where they come from. This was the point of the time the show changed. Also, I decided to, since I was not playing music on the show no more, I wanted to bring back my first spin-off show, which was the Deuce spin-off show. But I changed it to a conversation about music podcast, where we talked to many music artists and we talk about their music journey, and then played their music, just like an original thing. The original idea, I just brought it back. And so far, that episode been out of all the spin-off series, this has been probably the weakest out of the spin-off series, but it did do good. Shout out to all the guests that I had on a conversation about this so far. Shout out to Trent Turbo B, Hazel I. Rose, B. Wise, Banger, Move Dollars, Jin, Jitterbaya Star. And also, I added a new segment called The Face Off, where we do it by eras, and 2 artists face that era. And yeah, it was a cool idea. And Conversation About Music actually coming back in April, season 2 finally. So yeah, look out for that next spin-off series. And yeah, so episode 70, I have my aunt on the show, Miss Aunt Rolanda Powell on the show, and she basically author. We basically talk about her books and stuff like that, and her journey. This was a really good episode. This episode skyrocketed really good. Shout out to her. Yeah, it was really good. Episode 71, Miss Cece came back on the show, but the time was a solo interview. This was a cool interview. Then we had my birthday celebration episode, which became my biggest episode ever. And when I mean my biggest, meaning my plays was really skyrocketed to the point that, wow, I never seen any numbers high like this before. And basically this episode, I was just thinking about how it feels to turn 30. I believe I turned 34. Yeah, I turned 34 on his birthday. Yeah, I turned 34 on his birthday. And basically was telling how I felt. And this was a really good episode. Like I said, one of my top episodes. Then my second biggest episode was the Old School Show. With Nickelodeon, with Magna and Marsha, the twin sisters. And this was a really, really good episode. It was a long episode too, but it was really good. This has been my second longest episode. And we made it basically talk about everything Nickelodeon. This was a really popular episode. This was probably one of my favorite episodes that I ever worked on. Because that was a fun episode of the Old School Show. So shout out to them. Then a Conversation About Music podcast premiered. Then we had episode 72,
which was Mariah was on the show. Shout out to her. That was absolutely really good too. I made guest appearances on King Talk with Aaron Sands and the Good Vibe podcast with Felicia, this part of the soul. Episode 73, Jonathan Harris came on the show. He's an author, and this was a really, really good episode. He actually one of my favorite guests for the season. Shout out to him. Episode 74, with Felicia White, part 2, came on the show. Basically talked about her podcast show, Good Vibes Only. Episode 75, Angelica came back on the show, a little bit everything with me. Talk about her Latin podcast wins. And this was a really good episode. She really opened up on this episode. And like I said, I appreciate Angelica for everything that she do. She is probably one of the hardest working podcasters that I know. Like, for real, shout out to her. She's a really dope podcaster. Shout out to Angelica. I made some more guest appearances on Coupon Cream Pen and Angelica show. Then I was trying to figure out how to grow my show more. Because, Spotify took my show off. I wasn't sure if I ever go back on Spotify. Like, where should I take my show more? So that when I joined on Good Pies. I joined Good Pies on August 2021. And, Good Pies will have me up to 2019 to come on their platform. And I keep saying, no, I don't want to right now. But then I decided to, let me go and check out their platform and see what it is. And I ended up liking Good Pies, And I didn't know, there was so many dope indie podcasts in there. It was a lot of amazing dope indie podcasts. I remember joining Good Pies for the first time. And my first podcast show I listened to on Good Pies was the Rev Dub podcast. Shout out to Liz, Rainy, and Blue. They got an amazing show. Shout out to them, man. And I remember they was my first show I listened to on Good Pies. And I was like, yo, this is a dope show. And I just started listening to many shows, but I ain't gonna hold you. Me joining Good Pies, I felt very not confident because a lot of dope podcasters on that platform, and you feel like your show not good enough. I felt I was kind of new at the time because I didn't know what to really do. And, it was just a lot. It was just a lot. I lost my confidence, As a podcast, I lost my confidence because I was just surrounded by amazing dope podcasters. And honestly, I felt like, I just felt like, I felt like I was nothing, But, as times went on, of course, I learned to learn how to use Good Pies, how to network other podcasters as times went on. At the time when I started, I wasn't networking a lot of podcasters like that, how I am doing now. At the time, I was only listening to mainstream podcasters and also podcasters that I know. So I wasn't doing the whole support another podcaster thing at the time. But I think I started to learn to do that because, in order to grow yourself, you gotta help others. And I just started to learn that even more during the podcast world. So that how my podcast journey, on Good Pies started. I only got on Good Pies because Spotify, I needed more platform, but I ended up loving Good Pies. Shout out to the folks at Good Pies, man, for real. So episode 76. I had the Star Riding Ride on the show, and he went really, really personal on this interview that he went on. But it was a really good interview, but he went way personal. But it was really good though. Shout out to him. Episode 77, Naya came back on the show for her solo interview, and this was a good interview. Episode 78, we had the SummerSlam prediction episode. Episode 79, we had Miss Bana Bello on the show, who is an author. She got a poetry book that's out now. And this was a really good interview. But the bad part about this interview was the audio was messed up. It was a mouthful because I had my charger in during this interview, and it was a lot of staticky. But, and I felt bad about that. So I wanted to really do this interview over for Miss Bana Bello one day. But this was a really dope interview. Shout out to her. And then episode 80 was the season 4 finale.
And for this episode, I decided to open up about me being bullied and stuff like that. And honestly, at the time, this was one of my deepest episodes, episode 80. I really opened up about me being bullied. And it was to the point that it was so deep, I couldn't even finish the whole episode because it was so deep. And, and I was like, wow, I really wrote that on the podcast show. But then after that, I just realized that, I got to start opening up more to my audience. And I think after that episode, I really started to do that. So then I became a guest host on Shoutout Karaoke alongside Keep on Creeping. Because, Angelica at the time was having a baby, so I took over as a guest host for one episode. And that was a really dope experience. So I hope to do that again. I'm waiting for the opportunity. So hit me up, y'all. King Toby Aaron saying interview part 2 on his show again. Then I started trying on Good Pods for the very first time, and I was trying on Society and Culture. Like I was like in around the 50s. So yeah, but I knew each week I started growing more and more each week to the point that I started ending up being on the top 10, but I did not hit number 1 yet though. Because every time I seem to get close, another podcast that always seem to knock me close to the top spot. But yeah, I started growing on Good Pods around this time. Then season 5 premiered on November 12th, 2021. And my first guest for season 5, which was episode 81, was Penelope Rose. And she is a podcast host on a podcast show called All in Water. And this was a really, really dope interview. The only problem that the audio messed up, but this was a really dope interview though. It wasn't for that, this would have been one of my favorite interviews. Episode 82 was the Survivor Series prediction episode. Episode 83, we had Kendra Crump. She is a comedian, and she was my first comedian on the show. Ain't gonna hold her. She was really funny, and she been on many podcast appearances. So shout out to her. She's really funny, Episode 84, we have Miss Anna K. Hackerson from For Change Be Bold on the show. This was actually one of my favorite interviews first had of season 5. Dope individual. I remember me and her did a partnership for a giveaway on this episode, and this was a dope experience. Looking forward to bring her back again. Episode 85, I had the All-Star Christmas episode, which was Angelica, Christy Christ, and Cynthia on the show. And then that was a really fun episode. And then episode 86, we had Bye 2021 to Hello 2022. Ooh, my bad. I keep messing up. My bad. And stuff like that. Basically recapping everything that happened in the year 2021. And then I ended up getting COVID. To the point that I had to stop a lot of things. I ended up getting COVID on the year 2022. And yeah, I spoke about that COVID journey. We get to it. I'll talk about more about it. Then we had the 3-year anniversary of MrGentleman Like the Podcast 2022. And then this is the part of the story where I never really told. Because remember last year when I did this episode, I stopped here. So now we're going to talk about everything past this point. So episode 87, I had Destiny Unique on the show. And originally, Destiny Unique was supposed to be on the episode when the time I had COVID. She was supposed to be at the episode 86, the week after. But since I had COVID, her and another guest who I get about to get into had to get pushed back. But this was a really cool interview. She's a really dope person and stuff like that. Shout out to her. Episode 88, the Royal Rumble prediction episode, which also we had Long Live the Chief Valley Mountain on this show. And shout out to the bro coming on the show. Episode 89, we had Rosie, the Haitian mama from the Mama's Life podcast. And this was a really cool interview. And shout out to her. One thing about Rosie, she is a very, very supportive person, man. People say I'm a supportive person in the podcast community. She supported a lot of people.
So I just want to say, Rosie, continue to do amazing things. Shout out to you. And thank you for joining on. Thank you for always supporting the Gentleman Like the Podcast and the Premier Podcast. Thank you, Rosie, for always supporting the show. I appreciate you. Episode 90, we had another Valentine's Day, annual Valentine's Day episode. Episode 91, Queen Janae was on the show. She is a model, and she could talk. She is a dope individual. She really told a lot of stories and stuff like that. This was a really good interview. Shout out to her. Then Date Night Talk, I brought back Date Night Talk podcast, and I revealed that Ms. Vanna B was my co-host for Date Night Talk. So originally, Naya from What the F and Nana was supposed to be my co-host for Date Night Talk, but I feel like Vanna had more of a better connection, more of a better chemistry than me and Naya. Also, around this time, Vanna been on almost all the shows, so I knew how Vanna worked. So it was an honor to bring her on the show. And then Date Night Talk, even though Date Night Talk got pushed back many times, we are back with a new episode. We got a new episode out now, so shout out to Vanna. Yeah, y'all see more episodes of Date Night Talk coming in the next couple of weeks, and even season 2 later this year. So next we got the WrestleMania episode 92, WrestleMania episode 1 that she came back as well, Aaron Keith Sands. Then episode 93, I spoke about my COVID journey. And I realized with this season, on season 5, the second half of season 5, I wanted to be more open about myself on everything. I wanted to be more open from second half of season 5 to season 6. I want to be more open on everything, meaning that I just wanted to open up more. I feel like I haven't really opened up more. And I feel like this was the start of it. So I started with the COVID journey, where I talk about my COVID journey, how I dealt with COVID and my experience with COVID. And that episode done really good. Like a lot of my personal episodes did really good. It was just really, really good. It made me realize that I'm just happy that I finally opened up more, because I never used to do this on my show before. It took me to season 5 to really open up more of me. So episode 94, we had Therese on the show, who is the host of Kingdom Chat. This was actually one of my favorite interviews this season. She spoke about how she got saved. She talked about her pocket journey. I felt we had a lot of fun conversation during the interview, and shout out to her. This was actually one of my favorite interviews and stuff like that. Also around this time, I got on another podcast appearance with the podcast show called Drunken Idiots. And shout out to those dudes right there, man. It was a very different experience, but it was a fun experience. Nonetheless, shout out to those fellas. Also, I got on my first online article with Shoutout LA in April. And when I got that, first shout out to Angelica, because she put in for me for nomination to be on the article. So so I thank her for that. And it gave more of a platform for me to really tell my story. So so I thank you, shout out LA, for giving me the opportunity to really tell my story. And I felt like, even though 2022, the year itself was a great year for me, 2022 was a great year for MrGentleman Like the Podcast. I feel like this was the year the show finally grew in a way that it was supposed to grow, slowly, due to many personal things that I, feel like I could control, but, it was just a lot that was happening. It was just, but they, this was one of them MrGentleman successful years. So episode 95, I had Estelle Rose on the show. She's an author, and she also a long-time social media friend. She is a very cool person. Another person that supported me. Shout out to you. Keep doing amazing things. Episode 96 was an episode called Why I Love Podcasting. And I did this episode because it was a response to another podcaster on another platform. I'm not going to mention his show or his name, but it was something that he said on his show that I felt like he was doing shots at me for some reason, whatever that reason was. So I did it as a response, but as a positive response, basically showing how I love the podcast community. Shout out to the people who doing amazing things. Basically give positive light to the community instead of negative. Because honestly, we don't need negativity when all of us is growing to the same goal, going to the same mindset. So this episode basically was to not spread the negative. It's more about spreading the positive and telling the podcast community why I love the community. I think after this episode, it kind of opened up with the podcast community even more instead of me just being in my own box. So episode 97, I had a podcaster by the name of my band on the show. She is the host of Dating Will Be the Death of Me, and this was also another one of my favorite interviews. Basically talk about how dating experiences, talk about the show. It was really fun. It was really fun. And, thank you, Amanda, for coming on the show. And it was fun doing this episode with you. I'm actually looking forward for you to come back on my show and to finally come on your show. Then episode 98, Money in the Bank prediction episode. Then, around this time, I was dealing with a lot after this time, a lot of life stuff. I left to come in with podcasts around this time. A lot of personal stuff that going on behind the scenes. I spoke about it a little bit on the New Year episode. Finance issues and stuff like that, to the point that I was just couldn't handle a lot of the bills. It caused me to go on a deep depression and stuff like that. And made me stop the show until I was back to figuring myself back. So I released one more episode, which was episode 99, called The Next Move, which I pretty much dive in on everything that was going on, everything that going on with Premiere Board and stuff like that. And crazy enough, this episode been the biggest episode in 2022. It's also the biggest episode on Good Pods. And honestly, I didn't think people really cared. But when I seen that, I was like, wow, people actually does care. And a lot of people, I didn't right this time checking up, hopefully I come back and stuff like that, and it was a lot. I was going through a lot, basically with one of those silent battles that I didn't want to talk about. And it was a lot. I went through a really deep depression, because when you love to do something and you can't do what you love, it caused you to feel useless. It caused you to be, feel less than yourself. So that's how I felt at that moment. I felt I was at my worst. But then I came back September, when my mind was figured out, when I was coming back to basically find my place. I came back in September. And I brought up a series called Don't Call It a Comeback. And for that, it was just like me just saying that, I'm back and I'm just here to stay, basically, And then season six was, released in September, which I had my first guest, which was 100 episodes. I brought my sister back on the show, Cool Theo Powell, back on the show. And I brought her back on the show for the episode 100 because, one, she was my very first guest. Two, I felt like the interview that I gave her, she deserved more than 5 questions, And 3, between the first episode and now, she had a lot more going on, and I felt like I wanted to bring her back. And, everybody enjoyed it. And honestly, so far, season 6 became a big hit so far. With her back on the show, that did really good. Also, I skipped one part. I got my first number 1. I'm doing the 30th anniversary of MrGentleman, the podcast. When I got my first number 1 Good Pod for Society and Culture. And then around this time, I went to number one for the first time for top 100 shows on Good Pies. And I know that numbers is not a big thing for me, but if you think about numbers, it's important because I would say numbers is important because you got to see how your show's going. Like I'm thinking this when I do my show and I think I'm numbers. I look at it as like I'm a TV executive and I want to see how my show is doing. And if my show is doing good, we're gonna keep going. It's deserving another season, and we'll keep it going. If it's doing bad, then we're gonna put it on the chopping block. So basically, when I see my numbers and I see it doing good, it make me want to improve better. It know what I need to do. It know what I need to do and what I don't need to do. So when I finally got to number one for the first time back in early January, I was really shocked. You know, it was one of those things that it was more me being number one was more of a statement because I just wanted to show people that I'm here and basically not going nowhere. For top 100 shows, when I got to number one for top 100 show for the first time, I mentioned this on another episode that when I was on Good Pies, I never really seen no black podcasters on the top 10 charts like that. So the only black podcast when I saw on the charts was the Red Dub. And when they got to number one, I was really proud of them. Maybe it was more people when Good Pies started with more black indie podcasts in the number one spot, but from what I know, I went saw the Red Dub on the top. So I was thinking to myself, I need to be another black podcast to be in that top because I want to see more of my people. I'm going to support everybody, but I want to see more of my people be high in chart, be recognized. You know, cause I feel like a lot of us black podcasts do not get recognized at all. So when I got to number one for the first time, it was a great moment because it felt like a black podcast got to that top spot. You know, and it showed that if I could do it, anybody else could do it too. It was just a great feeling. So when I got to number one, I was like, wow, it was just amazing. And like I told you, it was amazing. I was happy. You know? So episode 101 happened. It was What Is Your Dream? And this is where I started to really open up more. And this episode basically talking about my dreams, you know, and stuff like that. And the thing about it, a lot of my personal episodes, a lot of people related to the personal episode that I was putting out. You know. And then episode 102, I brought my sister back on the show. On Off the Street Path, we dive into, you know, all her other books, you know, Good Job Dad, Good Job Jeff, and Sweet Taste of Almonds, and many more. And this was a really good episode, to the point that this episode was number one for top 100 episode for 4 days. You know, this was really good, and I'm proud of her for this, man. Also, I got on an article of What Is Your Podcast online article as well. So I was like really impressed by that too. Then episode 103, I had my bro Eric Stosane back on the show, and we had a series called The Brotherhood Crossover, where I had an episode on his show and he had an episode on my show. And it was a cool series that we started. Episode 104, we had the Purpose episode, another deep personal episode that a lot of people love. The episode 105 was Fear and Anxiety, which was, I can honestly say, one of my deepest episodes to this day. Was probably one of the hardest episodes that I ever did. Was probably one of the most talked about episodes on my show, where a lot of people outside, on Twitter, on Facebook, you know, Facebook chat, text, were talking about this episode, and everybody was like, wow, this is an amazing episode. And honestly, thank you everybody for listening to that episode, and thank you to everybody who related to what I was dealing with the fear and anxiety episode, because honestly, that was the deepest episode I ever did. That was the hardest episode that I ever did. So for everybody to really relate to this episode, I thank y'all, like, for real, from the bottom of my heart. I really thank y'all for that, like, for real. Episode number 6 was a filler episode. Was funny because the same filler episode was on the same number on episode 6. I just realized that I didn't even do that. Episode 107 was the Survivor Series board game episode where I have Aaron keep the fans back at the show. Episode 108 was the 40-year anniversary of Thriller episode with Long Live the Chief on the show. Episode 109 we had Sierra Coco on the show, who one half of the Wet Lounge. They have a new show called Peaky Swear Podcast. This was a really good interview. Shout out to her. And episode 110, we had Jay Lynn on the show. And this was actually one of my favorite interviews so far this season. She's a dope person, a positive person. She also on the Michelle podcast show, the Funny Girl podcast. On the Michelle podcast every first Monday, I think. It's a really dope show. Check it out. Check out the Michelle podcast. Jalen is on that show. Shout out to her. And last but not least, I had the LA Void article, which was honestly the end of the year, and that was like a big wow, And when I saw that, I was like, wow, this is amazing. This made me, realize that everybody heard my story. Just give me another opportunity to tell my story, and just to continue to grow, and continue to be the best version of myself. So, thank y'all for going through this podcast journey with me, y'all, and it really means a lot to thank you all for taking the time to listen to all the episodes that I did, all the guests that was with me through the journey. And there's many more things to do, because like I said, I'm not done yet. And what next for me? What is next for the Gentleman Like the Podcast? What is next for the show? Many more anniversaries episodes. I'm not sure if I'm gonna do this type of episode for next year. Cause I'm hoping for next year I will have a celebrity guest on the show instead of doing this. Cause I know it's long, and I don't want to keep y'all here for this long journey, but like I said, goals for this podcast show within the next couple of years. Hopefully get nominated for a podcast award and win a podcast award. Get on more other charts other than Good Pod, like get higher on Apple charts, get on Spotify charts. Grow the show even more. Make sure the merch store grows. The merch store grows, and I get more. And let's also continue to support others and change people's lives and help others the best way that I can. Inspire others, because that's what the purpose is. That's what this show is about. The show is about, telling your life journey and inspire others during that life journey, and that's what I want to continue to do. So thank y'all for taking the time to listen to my podcast journey on this 4-year anniversary episode of MrGentleman Like the Podcast, and I'll be right back.
What is up? This is Rosie, the Haitian mama from the Mama Life Podcast. And I want to wish you guys a happy 4-year anniversary on your podcast. Happy 4 years and many more to come.
Hey Ken, how's it going? It's Angelica here from A Little Bit of Everything with Me podcast. Oh my goodness, happy anniversary, 4 years of podcasting. It's quite of a journey. It's hard. It's just, oh my gosh, full of emotion here with 4 years. You've accomplished so much. You've done so many great things. You're a producer on many different podcasts. Boy, you have accomplished so much. Make sure you celebrate and go out there and celebrate those wins. You are an inspiration. You've been helping people. You've helped me. Oh my goodness, Ken, I'm so proud of you, of the podcaster you become and the person that you become as well. And we're always growing, and we're always trying to, improve everything in our lives. And I feel like the podcast has helped us mold that too, because we get to learn more about each other, not just our guests, but ourselves, So congratulations on, really just getting into that 4-year mark. That's fantastic. And you literally like the top charts of Good Pods. Congratulations. That's an amazing goal. I'm just so proud of you, dude. Like, keep doing what you're doing. I hope I can see you in the future in person. It's just amazing what you're doing. Thank you for asking me to be on the show and having me back as always. I really appreciate it. And thank you so, so much. So happy 4-year anniversary to Mr. Gentleman Lifestyle Podcast, and to you as well for putting all this extra work that you do and running all these other projects that you're doing. You're doing such a fantastic job, and I will talk to you later from your Canadian friend here, Angelica. Happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary, Mr. Gentleman Podcast. I am so excited. This is Anna Kay from For Change Be Bold Podcast. It's 4 years. Happy anniversary. I am excited about your growth. I'm excited about your show. Keep pushing, keep being the best person you can be. And guess what? Cheers to 4 years. I see you on the top charts. Keep going, keep grinding, keep pushing. I see you. All right, Mr. Gentleman, I wish you all the best as you continue with your
Hi, this is Michelle Simone Miller of Mentors on the Mic podcast, and I want to wish you a happy 4-year anniversary to Mr. Gentleman Lifestyle Podcast. It's truly incredible, and enjoy this moment. Congrats.
Hello, everybody. This is your boy Ken, aka MrGentleman of the Gentleman Like the Podcast and the Premier Boy Podcast. And this commercial is brought to you by the Premier Boy Podcast, where where we talk about anything about the culture. Hosted by myself, Ken, aka MrGentleman, Mr. Aaron Sands from King Talk with Aaron Sands, the Star Riding Ride, who is also my co-host of the Old School Show, and Long Live the Chief Nolly Bell. And we talk many topics, from politics, music, sex, love, relationships, and many more. And also every topic that's going on in the news right now. Many of our topics are very controversial, and the podcast show might not be for everybody because we talk about many explicit content. And yeah, so if y'all decided to check out the show, y'all be warned because y'all might need a drink or two. And yeah, because this podcast is so crazy. I'm shocked that it had not got canceled yet. So if y'all looking forward to listen to the Premier Boy Podcast, check it out on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, and many more. Each and every Wednesday at 12 a.m. You can check out the Premier Boy Podcast with myself, Mr. Aaron Sands, Star Riding Rod, and Long Live the Chief Nolly Bell. This is your boy Ken, aka MrGentleman. Have a good day and night wherever you're listening to this episode. Now back to the show. Yeah!
I just want to take the time and thank everybody for tuning in to this latest episode of MrGentleman Lifestyle Podcast. Thank you for celebrating 4 years of this podcast show with me. Y'all just don't understand. This really, really means a lot. Thank you for all the shares, the listen, the rate, the positive reviews, even the negative reviews. But for real, y'all, thank y'all for everything. Thank y'all for riding with me for these last 4 years and continue to ride with me even after the 4 years. Also, thank you to my guests that have been on the show for MrGentleman Lifestyle Podcast. All 55 of my guests, and y'all already know I do every anniversary episode. I'm gonna shout them out. First things first, shout out to my co-host for the spin-off show, the Star Riding Ride for the Old School Show, Vanna B for Dayton Night Talk Podcast, and Aaron Kingdom Sands, who are the guest host of the Wrestling Prediction episodes. Also, shout out to Amanda from Dating Would Be the Death of Me. Shout out to Amber. Shout out to Anthony from the Beautiful Feet Podcast. Shout out to Anna K. Haggerson from For Change Be Bold. Shout out to Angelica from A Little Bit of Everything With Me.
Shout out to Bromar for the Bromar Show. Shout out to Biana Lightfoot Smith from the Black Girl with Perfect podcast. Shout out to Banger Official. Shout out to Arthur Sharice Powell. Shout out to B Wise. Shout out to the Bronx Boom Boom. Shout out to the Coupon Cream Pen from CQP Moments. Shout out to Coach Dayelle Powell from Coaching Out Loud podcast. Shout out to Christy Christ from Fistful podcast. Shout out to Destiny Unique. Shout out to Estelle Rose. Shout out to Cynthia from our collaboration station and Listen and Learn podcast. Shout out to Felicia, aka Miss Positive Soul, from the Good Vibes Only podcast. Shout out to Gia Daxton from She Effing Did That, the JB Cigarette podcast, and the Decon Party podcast. Shout out to Jen Uriah Star. Shout out to Hazel Ives Rose. Shout out to Jay Siobhan from Surviving the Journey podcast. Shout out to Miss J. Lynn. Shout out to Mr. Jonathan Harris. Shout out to Lacey. Shout out to Kendra Crump. Shout out to Lily. Shout out to Magna and Marsha. Shout out to Long Live the Chief Body Mal. Shout out to Mariah. Shout out to Michelle Simone Mena from Mentors on the Mic podcast. Shout out to Miss Mighty Paz. Shout out to Mook Dallas. Shout out to Miss Cece from the Mind of Cece podcast. Shout out to Nana Powell. Shout out to Natalie Armstrong. Shout out to Naya from What the F and Nana podcast. Shout out to Miss Pandy Aloud. Shout out to Paige for the Badass Fabulous podcast. Shout out to Penelope Rose for All and Water podcast. Shout out to Queen Janae. Shout out to Walanda Powell. Shout out to Rosie, the Haitian Mama from the Mama's Life podcast. Shout out to Shadiqua. Shout out to Sam. Shout out to Ciara Coco from the Wet Lounge and the Peaky Swear podcast. Shout out to Tawana Powell of Twizzar. Shout out to Tourette's from the Kingdom Chat podcast. Shout out to Trophy T. Shout out to Twin Turbo B. And shout out to Miss Vanna Bello for coming on the show. Shout out to all my guests, all 55 of my guests for coming on the show. Thank y'all for continue to impact others' life. Thank you for continue to do amazing things. And I'm looking forward for everything that y'all about to do. Y'all all amazing. Y'all all great. And I'm looking forward to bringing y'all all back on my show for a future episode. Thank y'all again for being a big part of the show. Shout out to the COOP family circle of outstanding podcasters. Thank you for playing a big part of the show and helping me get out of my comfort zone. So shout out to the circle of outstanding podcasters, the COOP. And shout out to the podcast community for giving me a chance and for helping me to push me to be the best version of myself. And I appreciate each and every one of y'all. I appreciate all of y'all who listen to my show and everybody who I listen to y'all show who are doing amazing things right now. So I just want to take the time and hey, thank you from the bottom of my heart. And thank you to everybody that giving a shout out. I can't name everybody, but thank y'all for giving who took the time to give me a shout out. It really means a lot. And honestly, I appreciate each and every one of y'all. Once again, I thank you. And I got y'all. So y'all already know the Premier Boy Podcast. We are back with season 3. Myself, Aaron Kinto San, Star Writer Rod, and Long Live the Chief Mighty Mal. If y'all haven't heard the ending to the last episode, well, guess what? Spoiler alert, I am back on the Premier Boy Podcast full time. So check out this Wednesday for the new episode of the Premier Boy Podcast with me back on it. That's gonna be fun. Also, look out as check out the King Talk with Aaron Sands with the bro Aaron Quito Sands. Y'all already know I'm executive producer of King Talk with Aaron Sands, and I'll be executive producer of more projects coming soon. And y'all already know I'm at every Sundays with the Gentleman Lifestyle Podcast each and every Sunday at 12 a.m. We're on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, our radio, Amazon Music, Good Pods, and many more. Y'all can rate the show 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Good Pod, the Podchasers. The more you rate the show, the more people know about with the Gentleman Lifestyle Podcast. Season 6 of Mr. Gentleman Lifestyle Podcast return next Saturday at 12 a.m. for the Royal Rumble prediction episode with Aaron Kito Sands and Long Live the Chief Matty Mal. And next Sunday, the day after, we got another episode of the Old School Show with myself and the Star Riding Rod, where we talk about the 2000 R&B scene part 2. Woman R&B artists, so look out for that. That's gonna be a fun episode. And also later that week, that Thursday, Date Night Talk returns. Myself and Miss Vanna B next Thursday at 12 a.m. where we talk about all the bad in relationships. And look out for the other spin-off series, A Conversation About Music podcast, returning for season 2 in April 2023. Because also April 2023, we're going to have a new spot, new day for Thursdays, where all of the spin-off shows will be dropping on Thursdays, called the Spin-off Series Thursday, starting in April. More information on that coming real soon. And y'all already know your guest on Mr. Gentleman Lifestyle Podcast. Y'all can email me about yourself and everything that you do to my email, kenYPGENT@gmail.com, kenYPGENT@gmail.com, or y'all can hit me up on social media, Ken_Mr. Gentleman. I repeat, Ken, Ken_MR_Gentleman, GENTLEMAN, and we can set something up. Also, add me on Good Pods, Kim the Gentleman, where we cater to many independent podcasters. You can listen to each other's show, you can see what everybody listens to, and we have the charts. And at this time, I will be giving y'all the chart review. And of course, I will be giving y'all the chart review for Good Pods. And at this current time, for top 100 shows, Mr. Gentleman Lifestyle Podcast is number 4 for normal and indie charts. We were number 2 for a long period of time, but as of today, we dropped to number 4 for Society and Culture. We dropped to number 2 for Society and Culture, and honestly, I'm not mad because we were number 1 for 22 days. We were number 1 for 22 days on the Society and Culture, and honestly, I'm impressed by that. So, I just want to say thank y'all for continuing to support Mr. Gentleman like the podcast. It really means a lot, and I'm too impressed by that, y'all. That's crazy. 22 days, number 1 for Society and Culture. You know, I'm impressed by that. That's something to be proud of. I ain't gonna hold you. You know, I can't be mad at dropping to number 2. So we know we're gonna get back up there. But once again, thank y'all for supporting y'all. Really, really means a lot. And for top 100 episodes, we are number 22 on the normal charts and number 40 for the Old School Show, episode 16, 2000 RBC Part 1. And also, we are number 2 and number 9 for Date Night Talk episode 2. So once again, thank y'all for continuing to check out the Gentleman like the podcast, and continue to check it out on Good Pods. I continue to grow the show, and once again, I thank y'all. I know y'all probably wondering why I haven't done the Gentleman like the podcast shoutouts, because I'm only planning to do that shoutout on the main series. But guess what? I will start doing the Gentleman like the podcast shoutouts next episode on the Royal Rumble prediction episode. So I will have 5 new podcasters shout out on the next episode. And plus, I shout out a lot of people on this episode already. So we're gonna bring back the shout out segment next episode. And y'all already know what to do. Check out the website of the Gentleman like that podcast, www.realthegentlemanlikethatpodcast.com, www.realthegentlemanlikethatpodcast.com. You can check out every episode. You You can watch every video. You can check out every guest that I had on my show. You can check out every interview that I was on, every guest appearance that I was on. You can buy merch with TeePublic. Y'all could buy me coffee. There's many ways to support the show. Y'all could do it through the MrGentleman Lifestyle Podcast official website, www.realmrgentlemanlifestylepodcast.com. And once again, thank y'all for tuning in to this new episode of MrGentleman Lifestyle Podcast. Thank y'all for celebrating with me on this 4-year anniversary episode of MrGentleman Lifestyle Podcast. Thank y'all thank y'all everybody, man. Like, y'all really helped me do the show. Y'all, if it wasn't for y'all, this show would not happen. So thank y'all. Thank you for all the shout outs. And once again, thank y'all from the bottom of my heart, for real. Have a good day or night, wherever you're listening to this episode.
Congratulations, Ken. This is the Geeky Dan here. 4 years. That's a great accomplishment. I cannot believe it. I've been doing this for just 1 year now, and I don't know if I can even make it for 4 years. So, congratulations on 4 years, and I will be continuing to listening to you for the next 4 years and beyond. And I hope you never stop, because you're doing a great job. And congratulations. Happy anniversary.
Hey, I just want to give a big shout out to MrGentleman Lifestyle Podcast, man. Congratulations, little bro, man, for celebrating, 4 years of you doing this podcast, man. It's amazing, man. And I know I really appreciate you having me as a guest, man. Continue to do great things, man. I see great things in your future, man. All is well, bro.
Oh my gosh, 4 years, bro. This is the Star Roddy Rod. Wishing MrGentleman Lifestyle a continued success for more years to come.
Hey, what up? It's your man Aaron Sands, and I want to congratulate Ken the Gentleman on 4 years of the MrGentleman Lifestyle Podcast. You've been making waves, big bro, and glad you've been doing your thing out here for this long. Keep pushing, keep thriving, onward and upward. You already know the vibes. It's King Talk Sands. Yeah.